The space around the Galactic Council headquarters had been quiet for 300 years. Nobody ever came here without permission, nobody ever challenged the Council, nobody ever said no to their treaties. But today was different, today everything would change. Captain Li Haiyan stood on the bridge of his massive ship, the New Soul floated in the darkness like a sleeping giant. Its hull was covered in scars from 1,000 battles. Across unknown star systems, the metal was black and twisted, in some places showing that this ship had seen real war, not the small conflicts the Council was used to. Li Haiyan was not a young man. His face was hard and weathered like stone that had been beaten by storms for decades. His eyes were cold and showed no fear, even though hundreds of alien warships were surrounding his fleet. He had seen things that would make most beings in the galaxy run screaming into the void. The bridge was silent except for the soft hum of the engines. Everyone on the crew knew what they were here to do. They had practiced this moment for years. They had prepared for this day when humanity would finally reveal itself to the Galaxy Ambassador. Kang Mina walked slowly to the front of the bridge. She was wearing a simple black uniform with no decorations or fancy symbols. She did not need to show her rank or power. Everyone who saw her knew she was dangerous just by the way she moved, like a predator that had never known fear. The communication system suddenly came alive with angry alien voices. Supreme Chancellor Vex was a being made of living crystal that had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. His voice was like the sound of breaking glass when he spoke. "Where do you come from?" the Chancellor demanded, his crystalline form glowing with anger. "What species are you? Why do you dare to enter our space without permission?" Kang Mina smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would terrify her enemies. "We are humans," she said simply. "We come from a small blue world you call Earth." The council chamber fell silent. Earth was a legend to most aliens. They had heard stories of a world that refused all contact with the galaxy, a world that destroyed every probe sent to study it, a world that had somehow hidden itself from the most advanced civilizations in known space for 300 years. The Council had sent ambassadors to Earth. Every ship that went there never returned. Every message sent there was ignored. Every attempt to study the humans had failed. The Council had begun to believe that Earth was just a myth, but now the myths were standing in their space with ships that made their sensors scream warnings. "We have been watching you," Kang Mina continued, her voice calm and steady. "We have seen your treaties, we have studied your laws, we have learned about your empire, and we have decided that we want nothing to do with any of it." The Council members looked at each other in shock. No species had ever rejected Council membership. The benefits were too great, the protection was too valuable. The alternative was to face the galaxy alone, and no one was strong enough to do that. "You do not understand," the Chancellor said, his voice becoming desperate. "Our treaties protect everyone. They bring peace to the galaxy. They prevent wars between species." Peace? Kang Mina laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You call this peace? You have enslaved half the galaxy. You steal resources from weak worlds. You destroy any civilization that refuses to obey you. This is not peace. This is tyranny." Elder Park Ji-won stepped forward from behind the ambassador. He was an old man with white hair and kind eyes, but there was something frightening about him. He moved like someone who had seen the worst things in the universe and had survived them all. "We have done our research, Park," Ji-won said, his voice soft but somehow more terrifying than shouting. "We know what you did to the Altarians. You turned them into slaves in their own star system. We know about the vegan mining colonies. You worked entire species to death for rare metals. We know how you destroyed the Centauri Republic. You started a civil war just to steal their technology." The Council chamber erupted in angry voices. How could these humans know such secrets? These were classified files that only the highest Council members had access to. Park Ji-won held up a small device, and suddenly every screen in the Council chamber lit up with documents and files and recorded conversations. The evidence was overwhelming. The Council had been lying to the galaxy for thousands of years. "Your treaties are not protection," Park Ji-won continued. "They are chains disguised as gifts. You promise safety, but you deliver slavery. You promise prosperity, but you steal everything valuable. You promise peace, but you start wars whenever it benefits you." Human ships began to move slowly around the Council fleet. They were not threatening yet, but everyone could see that they were in perfect formation. These were not merchant vessels or exploration ships. These were warships designed for one purpose. Killing Captain Li Hyun finally spoke, and his voice was like the sound of distant thunder. "We reject your treaties," he said, "all of them, every single one. We will not join your council. We will not follow your laws. We will not pretend that your system is anything other than organized crime on a galactic scale." The council ships moved to surround the human fleet, but something strange happened. The human ships began to shimmer and fade like they were made of light instead of metal. The council sensors went crazy, showing readings that made no sense. "You cannot do this," the chancellor screamed. "No species can survive alone in this galaxy. You need our protection, you need our trade routes, you need our technology. We need nothing from you," Kong Mina said, and now her voice was hard as steel. "We have watched your empire for centuries. We have seen how you treat those who trust you. We have learned from your mistakes, and we have decided that freedom is worth more than safety." The human ship suddenly vanished completely, leaving only empty space where they had been floating. The council sensors showed nothing, no heat signatures, no energy readings, no trace that they had ever been there. But before they disappeared, a final message came through the communication systems. It was broadcast on every frequency to every world in the galaxy. The voice was clear and strong and absolutely without fear. "This is President Sumin of the Human Republic," she said. "We have a message for every species in this galaxy. You are not alone. You do not have to accept the chains that the Council calls protection. Freedom is possible. You just have to be brave enough to choose it." The message ended, and the space around the Council headquarters was quiet again, but everything had changed. The galaxy had met humanity, and humanity had said no to everything. The Council represented in the Council chamber. The silence stretched on and on. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in their seats and tried to understand what had just happened. The species they had never heard of had just exposed their deepest secrets, rejected their most basic assumptions, and then vanished like they had never existed. The Chancellor looked at his advisors and saw fear in their eyes. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council was afraid. They had always been the strongest, the smartest, the most advanced. But now they had met something that was none of those things, and yet somehow more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. The humans had not threatened them with weapons or violence. They had simply said no, and somehow that simple word had shaken the foundations of the galaxy. The Council had ruled through fear and manipulation for millennia, but now they were the ones who were afraid, and they did not know what to do about it. The age of the Council's absolute power was ending, and it had ended with a single word, spoken by a species that refused to bow to what everyone else accepted as inevitable: no. The emergency alarm had been ringing for 6 hours straight across every Council world. The sound was driving everyone crazy, but nobody dared to turn it off. The galaxy had never seen anything like this before. A species had rejected the Council and lived to tell about it. Supreme Chancellor Vex stood in the center of the great chamber, his crystalline body flickering with nervous energy. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the overlords of Proxima, the hive queens of Centauri, the machine kings of Vega. All of them were afraid. "We must find them immediately," the Chancellor commanded, his voice cracking like breaking glass. "Send every scout ship, every spy probe, every intelligence agent. Find out where these humans are hiding." General Korax, the military commander of the Council forces, stepped forward. He was a massive creature with 4 arms and scales that could stop laser fire. But even he looked nervous. His red eyes darted around the chamber like he expected human ships to appear at any moment. "Sir," he said, his voice shaking, "we have searched everywhere. The humans have vanished completely. Our sensors cannot find them. Our spies have no information about them. It's like they never existed, but they did exist." Another voice said from the shadows. Admiral Zenos emerged from the corner of the chamber. She was a being made of living metal with eyes like burning stars. She commanded the Council Intelligence Network and knew every secret in the galaxy. "They knew things that only we should know," she continued. "They had files that were classified above our highest security levels. They knew about operations that we thought were completely secret." The Chancellor turned to face her, his crystalline form growing brighter with anger. "How is that possible? We have the best security in the galaxy. We have agents everywhere. We control all information flow." Admiral Zenos shook her metal head slowly. "Sir, they have been watching us for over a century. They know our weaknesses, our Mistakes are crimes. They have been preparing for this moment while we thought they were just primitive beings on a backward world. The chamber fell silent as the full horror of the situation hit them. The humans had been studying them, learning about them, planning against them for generations, while the council had been busy ruling the galaxy. The humans had been getting ready to destroy everything they had built. Suddenly, every screen in the chamber lit up with the same image. A human woman appeared on all of them at once. She was young and beautiful, but her eyes were cold as space. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations, but somehow she looked more dangerous than any warrior. "Good morning, council members," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I am President Osumin of the Human Republic. I am speaking to you from Earth, our home world that you have been trying to find for so long." The council members looked at each other in shock. How was she broadcasting on their secure channels? How had she broken through their defenses? "We know what you are thinking right now," President Osumin continued. "You are wondering how we can do this. You are wondering where we are hiding. You are wondering why we are not afraid of you. The answer is simple. We are not afraid because we know the truth about you. We know that your empire is built on lies and fear and violence. We know that you are bullies who pick on the weak and run from the strong." The chancellor tried to interrupt the broadcast, but nothing happened. The human woman kept talking like she owned every communication system in the galaxy. "We have been watching you destroy civilizations for centuries," she said. "We watched you turn the Altarians into slaves. We watched you strip mine the vegan worlds until they were lifeless rocks. We watched you start civil wars just to steal technology. But we also watched the people you hurt. We saw their pain, their fear, their hopelessness. And we decided that someone had to stop you. Someone had to stand up to the biggest bully in the galaxy." The image changed to show files and documents and recordings that proved everything she was saying. The council had been caught red-handed in their crimes, and now the evidence was being broadcast to every world in the galaxy. "Your treaties are not protection, they are chains," she continued. "Your peace is not real peace, it is the silence of the oppressed. Your prosperity is built on the suffering of others." The council members were getting more and more panicked. Some of them were already trying to leave the chamber, but the doors would not open. The humans had locked them in their own meeting room. "We reject your system," President Osumin said, and her voice became hard as steel. "We reject your treaties. We reject your laws. We reject your authority over anyone or anything, and we are not the only ones." The image changed again to show something that made the council members scream in terror. Rebellions were starting on dozens of worlds. Species that had been slaves for generations were rising up against their oppressors. Human weapons and human advisors were helping them fight. The Altarians had broken their chains and were attacking council bases. The vegans had seized their mining equipment and were driving out the council overseers. The Centaurians had declared independence and were refusing to pay tribute. "Your empire is crumbling," President Osunin said, and now she was smiling. "But don't worry, we are not going to replace you. We are not going to become the new masters. We are going to do something much worse. We are going to set everyone free." The broadcast ended, and the chamber was quiet except for the sound of the council members breathing heavily. They had just watched their empire begin to fall apart, and they had no idea how to stop it. The chancellor finally found his voice. "Send the fleet," he commanded in a voice like breaking glass. "Send every ship we have, find the humans, and destroy them before they can do any more damage." But General Corax shook his massive head. "Sir, we don't know where they are. We don't know how many ships they have. We don't know what weapons they use. We would be fighting blind then find out." The chancellor screamed. "Use every resource. We have break every code, interrogate every prisoner, torture every spy until someone tells us what we need to know." Admiral Zenas stepped forward again. "Sir, I have been analyzing the human broadcast. The technology they used is beyond anything we have ever seen. They were able to take control of our most secure systems without us even knowing they were there." "What are you saying?" the chancellor demanded. "I'm saying that we might not be dealing with a normal species," Admiral Zenas replied. Her metal face showed something that looked like fear. "These humans might be more advanced than we thought. They might be more dangerous than we ever imagined." The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Everyone was talking at once. Everyone was making demands. Everyone was placing blame, but nobody had any answers. Nobody knew what to do. The humans had appeared out of nowhere, rejected everything the council stood for, exposed their deepest secrets, and then vanished like ghosts. And now rebellions was starting everywhere as species that had been oppressed for centuries finally found the courage to fight back. The Galaxy Council had ruled through fear for 3,000 years, but now they were the ones who were afraid and they were learning. That fear was a terrible thing when you were the one feeling it. Outside the chamber, the galaxy was changing. The human message was spreading from world to world. Species were remembering what freedom felt like. They were remembering that they had choices. The Council's age of absolute power was ending, and it was ending because one species had been brave enough to say no to everything that everyone else accepted as normal. The revolution had begun, and there was no way to stop it. The Council fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 5 million warships from every corner of the galaxy had come together to hunt down the humans. The combined firepower could destroy entire star systems in minutes. Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of the flagship Victory of Ages, looking out at the endless rows of ships stretching into the darkness. He was the greatest military mind in Council history. He had never lost a battle. He had conquered more worlds than any being alive, but today he was afraid. The humans had been attacking Council supply lines for 3 weeks. They struck without warning and vanished without trace. They moved through space in ways that made no sense. They used weapons that broke the laws of physics. Colonel Kim Do-yeon was leading these attacks, and he was driving the Council forces insane. His ships would appear out of nowhere, destroy their targets, and disappear before anyone could react. The Council had lost more supplies in 3 weeks than they had in the previous century. Sir, came a voice from behind Admiral Vex. He turned to see Commander Vrak, his intelligence officer. The alien had tentacles for arms and eyes that could see in 16 different spectrums. What is it, Vex demanded. We have another report from the Outer Rim. Vrak replied. 3 more supply convoys have been destroyed. The humans hit them simultaneously across 12 different star systems. Admiral Vex felt his blood run cold. 12 different star systems at the same time. That was impossible. No fleet could coordinate attacks across such vast distances. The communication delays alone would make it impossible. How many ships did they use? He asked. That's the problem, Sir. Commander Vrak said nervously. Our survivors report seeing only 1 ship at each location. 12 ships total, destroyed 36 convoys and vanished 1 ship per convoy. Admiral Vex repeated slowly. That meant each human ship was more powerful than an entire Council battle group. It meant the humans were not just advanced, they were so far ahead that Council technology looked like toys. Show me the wreckage, he commanded. The holographic display lit up, showing twisted metal and strange burn marks that glowed with an eerie light. The damage patterns were unlike anything in Council databases. The weapons that had done this were beyond their understanding, sir. Commander Vrak continued hesitantly. There is something else. The wreckage is broadcasting a message. Put it on screen. Admiral Vex ordered. The display changed to show a young human woman in a simple uniform. She was sitting in what looked like a laboratory, surrounded by equipment that seemed to be made of pure light. My name is Engineer Song Yeji, she said, her voice calm and professional. I am speaking to you from the Human Research Station Harmony. We want you to understand something important. The Council ships you are building are based on technology that is 3,000 years old. You are using fusion reactors. When we have learned to harness the power of collapsing dimensions, you are using projectile weapons. When we can manipulate matter at the quantum level. The image changed to show human ships moving through space. They were not flying, they were folding space around themselves, appearing and disappearing at will. They moved like living things dancing through the void. Your ships are slow and clumsy, she continued. Your weapons are weak and outdated. Your defenses are like paper against our technology. But we do not want to hurt you. We want to help you. Help us, Admiral, Vex snarled. What kind of help? The kind that sets you free, Song Yeji replied. The same kind we are offering to every species in the galaxy. The display changed again to show something that made Admiral Vex step backward in shock. Human agents were on Council worlds everywhere. They were in the cities, the factories, the military bases. They had been hiding in plain sight for decades. General Bei Minjin appeared on the screen. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes, but there was something terrifying about him. He looked like someone who had seen every kind of war and had learned to win them all. We have been watching you for over a century, he said. We know your patrol routes, your supply schedules, your military codes. We know where your families live, where your leaders sleep, where your weapons are stored. The Council had thought they were hunting the humans, but the humans had been hunting them all along. We know about the secret police on Altair General Bay. Continued, we know about the slave camps on Vega. We know about the prison planets where you send anyone who asks questions, and we know about the resistance movements that you have been trying to crush for generations. The image changed to show rebels on dozens of worlds. They were not just fighting with their bare hands anymore. They had human weapons, human advisors, human technology. They were winning. You created these resistance movements yourself, the general said, by oppressing people who just wanted to be free, but you also created the conditions for your own defeat, Admiral. Dex realized with growing horror that the humans were not just more advanced, they were smarter. They had studied the Council for generations and had learned exactly how to destroy them. The BROADCAST continued, but now it was Lieutenant Commander Jang Soyan speaking. She was young, but her eyes were ancient, like she had seen the birth and death of civilizations. We are not invaders, she said. We are not conquerors. We are not here to replace the Council with another empire. We are here to end the age of empires forever. The galaxy does not need rulers. It needs freedom. It needs the chance for every species to choose their own path without fear of punishment or domination. The image changed one final time to show the human homeworld Earth. It was a beautiful blue planet covered in clouds and oceans. It looked peaceful and quiet, nothing like the fortress world the Council had expected. This is where we come from, Jang Soyan said. A world where we learned that freedom is worth any price, where we discovered that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, where we decided that no one should have to bow to anyone else. The broadcast ended, and the Council fleet was left floating in space with no targets to shoot at and no enemies to fight. The humans had shown them just how outmatched they were without firing a single shot. Admiral Dex looked out at his massive fleet and realized that it was useless. The humans could strike anywhere at any time with weapons that could destroy anything the Council had built, and they were not even trying to hurt him. They were trying to save him. The thought was more terrifying than any weapon because it meant that the humans were not just more powerful, they were better. The Council had spent thousands of years becoming the greatest military force in the galaxy, but the humans had spent those same years becoming something else entirely. They had become the thing the Council feared most. They had become the good guys, and there was no defense against that, no strategy that could defeat it, no weapon that could stop it. The age of empires was ending, and it was ending because one species had decided that freedom was more important than power. The Council fleet turned and headed home, knowing that they had already lost a war that had never really been about fighting at all. It had been about choosing what kind of galaxy they wanted to live in, and the humans had already made their choice. The Council's revenge was swift and brutal. They had lost face in front of the entire galaxy, and now they wanted to make sure everyone knew what happened to those who defied them. The orders came from the highest levels: destroy any world that had shown support for the human message. Supreme Chancellor Vex stood in the war room watching the holographic displays show the destruction. His crystalline form pulsed with angry light as planet after planet fell to Council forces. The Altarian colonies were burning. The vegan mining stations were being torn apart. The Centaurian cities were crumbling under orbital bombardment. We'll show them, he said, his voice like breaking glass. This will show the galaxy what happens when you listen to human lies. But something was wrong. The destruction was not having the effect he wanted. Instead of surrender, the attacks were creating more resistance. Instead of fear, they were creating anger. The humans had predicted this response, and they were ready. Captain Rujinwo commanded the human rescue fleets, and he was everywhere at once. His ships appeared in the most dangerous places just as the Council forces were beginning their attacks. They moved with impossible speed, evacuating entire populations. In minutes, the Council had expected the humans to fight back with weapons and violence. Instead, they fought back with mercy and compassion. Every civilian that the Council tried to hurt was saved by human ships. Every refugee that the Council tried to abandon was given shelter by human bases. On the bridge of his flagship New Bisan, Captain Ru watched the evacuation of the Altarian capital. The city was burning, but his ships were pulling thousands of people to safety every minute. His crew Worked with mechanical precision born of endless practice, sir, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Park. The Council forces are demanding that we surrender the refugees. They say they will destroy us if we don't comply. Tell them we decline. Captain Rue replied calmly and remind them that we have been declining their offers for quite some time now. The Council ships opened fire, but their weapons passed right through the human vessels like they were made of light. The humans had technology that made them untouchable, but they used it only to save lives, never to take them. Dr. Choi Youngman ran the human medical operations, and her hospital ships were legendary across the galaxy. They appeared wherever there was suffering, regardless of politics or species. Her doctors treated everyone who needed help, asking no questions about loyalty or allegiance. The Council had tried to destroy her ships dozens of times, but they could not even find them. The human medical vessels existed in dimensions that Council sensors could not detect. They were there when needed and gone when threatened. We treat all patients equally, Dr. Choi had said in her famous broadcast. Whether they are Council supporters or resistance fighters, whether they are soldiers or civilians, whether they are allies or our enemies, pain is pain and healing is healing. This philosophy was driving the Council insane. They were used to enemies who fought fire with fire, who met violence with violence, who could be understood and defeated through superior force, but the humans were different. They met violence with rescue. They met hatred with healing. They met war with mercy. And this made them more dangerous than any army professor Han Minji was broadcasting educational programs to every world in the galaxy. Her lessons taught oppressed species how to resist their oppressors, how to organize rebellions, how to build better societies. Her voice reached into the darkest corners of the galaxy, bringing hope to those who had given up. The Council tried to jam her broadcasts, but she was using technology they could not understand. She was teaching people things they had never been allowed to learn. She was giving them tools they had never been allowed to use. Today we will learn about passive resistance, she said during one broadcast. The Council wants you to fight them with violence because they are very good at violence, but they are not good at dealing with people who simply refuse to cooperate. Her lessons were simple but effective. Entire worlds began practicing civil disobedience. Workers refused to work in Council factories. Citizens refused to pay Council taxes. Soldiers refused to fight in Council wars. The galaxy was learning that there were ways to resist that did not require weapons or armies. The humans were teaching them that the greatest power was the power to say no. Admiral Lim Sokshin commanded the human defense forces, and he was a master of the impossible art of protective warfare. His fleets would appear whenever the Council attacked rebellious worlds, but they never invaded Council territory. They never conquered Council worlds. They never tried to build an empire. We are not here to rule you, he had said in his message to the galaxy. We are here to make sure that no one else can rule you either. This restraint was more frightening to the Council than any threat could have been. The humans had the power to conquer the galaxy, but they chose not to use it. They had the technology to destroy their enemies, but they chose to save their victims instead. The Council military leaders were going insane, trying to fight an enemy that would not fight back in any way they understood. The humans were like water flowing around obstacles, finding ways to help people that the Council could not predict or prevent. General Korax, the Council military commander, called another emergency meeting. His forearms were shaking with frustration and his scales were turning dark with stress. Sir, he said to the Chancellor, we cannot fight them. Our weapons cannot touch them. Our strategies cannot predict them. Our intelligence cannot find them. Then what do you suggest? The Chancellor demanded. General Korax was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that shocked everyone in the room. Maybe we should surrender. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but General Korax continued. We are not fighting a war. We are fighting an idea. The idea that people should be free. The idea that the strong should protect the weak. The idea that power should serve justice instead of itself. And you cannot kill an idea with weapons. Chancellor's crystalline form flared with rage, but he knew the general was right. The humans were not trying to defeat the Council. They were trying to obsolete it. They were building a galaxy where the Council was simply not needed. The Council had ruled through fear for 3,000 years, but the humans had shown the galaxy that there was an alternative. They had shown that protection did not require submission, that safety did not require slavery, that order did not require Oppression species that had been loyal to the Council for centuries were beginning to ask questions. Why did they need the Council if the humans could protect them better? Why did they need Council law if human justice was fairer? Why did they need Council peace if human freedom was more secure? The galaxy was changing, and the Council was becoming irrelevant. The humans had found a way to defeat them without destroying them, and that was the cruelest victory of all. The price of defiance was supposed to be destruction. But the humans had turned it into liberation. The Council had tried to punish the galaxy for listening to human ideas. Instead, they had proven that human ideas were worth any price. The revolution was spreading, and there was nothing the Council could do to stop it except surrender to the very ideals they had tried to destroy. The Age of Empires was ending, and the Age of Freedom was beginning. It was all because one species had decided that saving people was more important than defeating enemies. The war had been going on for 6 months, and the Council was losing badly. They had the largest military force in galactic history, but they were fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The humans moved like ghosts through space, striking where they were least expected and vanishing before anyone could respond. Commander Park Hyerim led the human stealth operations, and she was a master of the impossible. Her ships could hide in plain sight, moving through the most heavily defended systems without being detected. They destroyed Council communication networks, leaving their forces blind and confused. The Council had always controlled information flow across the galaxy, but now their own networks were being used against them. Human hackers had infiltrated every system, turning Council propaganda into resistance messages and Council military orders into chaos. We own your networks, Commander Park had said in her broadcast to the Council. Your secrets are our intelligence, your orders, our early warning system. Your communications are our weapons. This was psychological warfare at its finest. The Council leaders could not trust their own equipment, could not believe their own reports, could not communicate with their own forces without wondering if the humans were listening. Captain Seo Jung-ho commanded the human strike forces, and he specialized in surgical precision. His ships would appear in the most heavily defended Council systems, complete their missions, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. The Council had learned to expect human attacks, but they could never predict where or when they would come. The humans seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage to the Council war effort while minimizing harm to innocent civilians, sir, reported a Council intelligence officer to Admiral Dex. The humans have destroyed another major supply depot on Rigel 7. They hit it during the shift change when the civilian workers were off duty. No casualties among the workers, but the entire depot is gone. Admiral Dex stared at the report in disbelief. The humans had somehow managed to destroy a massive military installation without hurting a single civilian. How did they know exactly when to strike? How did they care so much about protecting people who were not even their allies? The answer came from Dr. Kim Soo-jin, the human psychological warfare specialist. Her analysis of Council psychology had been frighteningly accurate. She had predicted exactly how the Council would respond to every human action. The Council thinks like conquerors. She had explained in her classified report. They believe that power comes from fear, and fear comes from the ability to hurt people, but they have never faced an enemy that refuses to hurt anyone. This is their greatest weakness. They cannot understand mercy, so they cannot defend against it. They cannot comprehend compassion, so they cannot counter it. They cannot fight an enemy whose greatest strength is Council's own member species. We're beginning to notice this difference between the Council and the humans. The Council demanded loyalty through fear, while the humans offered friendship through respect. The Council punished disobedience with death, while the humans rewarded courage with protection. Foreign Minister Lee Dae-yoon was conducting secret negotiations with dozens of Council member species, but these were not ordinary diplomatic talks. She was not trying to get them to join the human because she was trying to get them to find their own cause. We will not ask you to fight for us, she had said in her private meetings. We will not ask you to join our government. We will not ask you to follow our orders. We will only ask you to decide for yourselves what kind of galaxy you want to live in. This approach was revolutionary in galactic politics. The Council had always offered protection in exchange for obedience. The humans were offering protection in exchange for nothing at all. They wanted no tribute, no loyalty, no submission. They just wanted people to be free. The psychological impact was devastating to the council. More and more species were beginning to ask themselves a dangerous question: if the humans could protect them without ruling them, why did they need the council at all? The Great Rebellion began on Altair Prime, where the human underground had been organizing for months. The signal was simple: every light in the capital city went out for exactly 1 minute. When they came back on, the council garrison found itself surrounded by millions of angry citizens. The rebellion spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly remembered what it felt like to fight back. They had human weapons, human advisors, human technology, but most importantly, they had human inspiration. The council forces were overwhelmed. They had trained to fight other armies, not entire populations. They had weapons designed to destroy ships, not movements. They had strategies built for conquest, not liberation. Admiral Vex found himself commanding a fleet that was becoming more useless every day. His ships could destroy planets, but they could not stop ideas. His weapons could kill millions, but they could not defeat hope. His armies could conquer worlds, but they could not rule people who refused to be ruled. The final blow came when the council's own military began to question their orders. General Korak stood before a room full of council officers and asked a question that changed everything. "Are we the bad guys?" he said quietly. "Are we the evil empire that crushes freedom? Are we the monsters that the humans are trying to stop?" The room was silent for a long moment. Then one by one the officers began to nod. They had all seen the evidence. They had all witnessed the human mercy. They had all compared council brutality with human compassion, and they had all reached the same conclusion. The council tried desperately to negotiate, offering the humans everything they could think of: territory, technology, resources, complete autonomy. But every offer was met with the same response from Foreign Minister Li Dayun: "Will not join your system of slavery, and we will not allow you to continue enslaving others." The council's greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. Their vast empire was too large to defend effectively. The humans exploited every vulnerability with surgical precision, appearing wherever the council was weakest. But the real victory was not military, it was moral. The galaxy had seen two different ways of wielding power: the council's way, which was based on fear and control, and the human way, which was based on respect and freedom. The choice was obvious. Species after species declared independence using weapons and strategies provided by human advisors. The council's seemingly infinite power crumbled against humanity's absolute refusal to compromise on freedom. The humans had somehow managed to be both completely peaceful and utterly terrifying. They were peaceful in their intentions, but terrifying to anyone who profited from oppression. The galaxy watched in amazement as the most powerful empire in history dissolved, not through military defeat, but through moral obsolescence. The council had been replaced by something better, and everyone could see it. The tide had turned, and it had turned because one species had refused to accept that might makes right. The age of empires was ending, and the age of freedom was beginning. It was all because the humans had discovered that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy was not a gun or a bomb or a fleet of warships. It was the simple idea that everyone deserved to be free, and that idea was bulletproof. The end came not with explosions or battles, but with a simple announcement broadcast across the galaxy: the council was dissolving itself. Supreme Chancellor Vex stood in the great chamber one last time, his crystalline form dim and cracked with defeat. "The Galactic Council hereby announces its dissolution," he said, his voice barely audible. "All member species are released from their treaty obligations. All council laws are hereby void. All council forces are ordered to stand down." It was the end of an era that had lasted 3,000 years. The most powerful empire in galactic history was surrendering, not to superior force, but to superior ideals. President Munyeho stood on the bridge of the human flagship New Earth, watching the council fleet power down their weapons and surrender. The victory had cost not a single human life, because the humans had fought with ideas. "Instead of armies, we offer you the same choice we have given everyone else," he broadcast to the council remnants. "Join a new system based on equality and freedom, or choose isolation. The decision is yours." The surviving council members looked at each other with confusion and fear. They had spent millennia as the rulers of the galaxy. They had no idea how to be Anything else. Some chose isolation, fleeing to the outer rim to build small kingdoms where they could still pretend to have power. Others chose to join the new system, hoping to find redemption in service to the ideals they had once opposed. The new Galactic Federation that emerged was unlike anything in galactic history. It had no capital world, no supreme leader, no central authority. Each species maintained complete sovereignty, joining together only for mutual defense and trade. The humans, who had sparked this revolution, refused all leadership positions. They would not be presidents or admirals or judges in the new system. They insisted that true freedom meant self-governance. "We did not come to rule you," Ambassador Shin Yuna explained. "To the First Federation Assembly, we came to remind you that you have always had the power to rule yourselves." The new Federation Constitution was simple and elegant. It guaranteed the right of every species to choose their own path. It prohibited any form of slavery or oppression. It established that consent of the governed was the only legitimate source of authority. But the most important article was the last one, which had been written by the humans themselves. "No species or government or organization has the right to rule another against their will. No treaty or law or tradition can justify oppression. No emergency or crisis or threat can excuse the denial of basic freedoms. These rights are not granted by governments. They are not earned through loyalty. They are not privileges to be revoked. They are the birthright of every sentient being in the galaxy." The transformation was not easy. Many species had lived under council rule for so long that they had forgotten how to be free. They needed time to learn how to govern themselves, how to make their own decisions, how to live without fear. The humans helped, but they did not lead. They provided advice, but not orders. They offered resources, but not control. They were teachers and protectors, but never rulers. Dr. Choi Youngmin established medical schools on every world, teaching alien doctors how to heal without asking for payment. Professor Han Minji created universities that taught critical thinking and individual rights. Engineer Song Yeji shared technology that could free civilizations from scarcity, but always the message was the same: these gifts come with no strings attached. Use them as you see fit. We ask for nothing in return except that you extend the same freedom to others. The galaxy began to flourish in ways that had been impossible under council rule. Art and science and culture exploded as species were free to explore their own potential. Trade increased as the barriers between worlds fell. Innovation accelerated as ideas flowed freely. The humans had proven that freedom was not chaos, that equality was not weakness, that cooperation was stronger than domination. Captain Li Haiyan, now an old man, stood on the observation deck of New Earth, watching the bustling traffic of the new galaxy. Merchant ships from 100 worlds moved freely through space, carrying goods and ideas and dreams. His granddaughter, Captain Lee So-yun, joined him at the window. She commanded the newest generation of human ships, vessels designed for exploration and rescue rather than war. "Grandfather," she said, "do you think we did the right thing, Lee?" Han smiled as he watched a group of young Altarians playing in the zero-gravity garden, their laughter echoing through the ship. These children had been born free, had never known oppression, had never been afraid of speaking their minds. "We gave them a choice," he said. "That is all we ever wanted to." The humans had given the galaxy more than just a choice. They had given it an example. They had shown that it was possible to be strong without being cruel, to be powerful without being oppressive, to be successful without being selfish. The new galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems, still species that struggled with the concept of freedom. But now these problems were solved through negotiation and compromise rather than conquest and submission. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun, and it had all started because one species had been brave enough to say no to what everyone else accepted as inevitable. Ambassador Shin Yuna gave her final address to the galaxy from the same chamber where the council had once ruled. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of history. "We came not to conquer, but to liberate. We came not to rule, but to serve. We came not to impose our will, but to respect yours." The galaxy belonged to everyone who lived in it, and now everyone was free to make their own choices about what kind of galaxy they wanted it to be. Human ships began their journey home, leaving behind a transformed galaxy. They had completed their mission not through force or fear, but through the simple act of refusing to accept that things Had to be the way they were. The galaxy had learned that the most dangerous enemy of tyranny was not rebellion or revolution, but the quiet refusal to participate in your own oppression, and that lesson would echo through the stars for generations. To come, the Council's treaties had been rejected, their power broken, their victims freed, all because one species had understood that freedom was not something you asked for, it was something you took, and once taken, it could never be given back. The new galaxy was free, and it would stay free because its people had learned the most important lesson of all. The choice was always theirs. They had simply forgotten that they had the right to choose. Now they would never forget again.